And we start right away with exclusive material. Kursk region, the Ministry of Murders, also known as the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, proudly announces that their army, Duyosai, has once again taken control of the city of St. Petersburg. Suju? Of course, the war criminals are, as always, silent about the main issue. The Russian army has almost completely destroyed the Su-25s with airstrikes. And also this week there was the so-called Operation Pipe. That's when the Russians tried to advance through the gas pipeline. Some of them suffocated right in that gas pipeline. All the details are coming up next.
It's brutal near Kursk. Russia has deployed one of its most powerful Rubicon UAV units here. The Western press reports hundreds of targeted logistics of the armed forces of Ukraine.
At the moment, the tactic of the Russian occupiers is to try to gain fire or direct control over the locations of the Ukrainian defense forces in order to minimize the possible rotation of personnel, supply of ammunition, and evacuation of the wounded. With this goal in mind, fire is being directed at the bridges in the rear of the Ukrainian defense forces to cut off the units of the Ukrainian defense forces from the rear bases of logistical supply.
According to a soldier of the armed forces of Ukraine, the occupiers have managed to penetrate 500-700 meters from the Ukrainian border in the Sumy region.
According to the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, this is the only verified source of information, and no mass breakthrough of Russian troops in the Sumy region has been recorded. The enemy is operating with sabotage and reconnaissance groups and small infantry units. The main task is to establish a foothold in Ukrainian territory. It's more of an informational effect, isn't it? We are talking about the so-called mass breakthrough of the state border of Ukraine near the populated areas, the points Novenka and Zhuravka.
But the Russians are also suffering colossal losses. Putin's army planned a grand offensive trying to approach the court via the gas pipeline branch. What?
What do you guys say? Where are we? Pipe? The pipe that leads to the court, right? I would have never thought it was 12 kilometers to the water through the pipe. I'm carrying something, but the traffic jam won't let me through. What's going on? What do you say, bro? Hello. This is how we go.
Look, armed criminals have started to infiltrate the main gas pipeline in small groups. However, the plan that the Russians initially boasted about has turned into a real disaster for them. Some of the soldiers in the pipe simply suffocated, while other participants in the super operation were eliminated by the ISU. There will be no peace for the Russians, even in the temporarily occupied Crimea. Ukrainian military is preparing a new operation that will finally and completely destroy the Kerch Bridge.
God loves the Trinity. I don't rule out the possibility of such a scenario being realized. Moreover, we're talking about the possible strengthening of Ukraine's diplomatic position. We're talking about the Crimean, or as it's called, the Kerch Bridge. This is the main logistical component for the Russian occupying forces, both at the moment of the transition of personal heavy armored vehicles and the supply of civilian infrastructure to the occupying administration in the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. Therefore, the elimination of the illegal engineering structure effectively cuts off the Russian grouping in Crimea from its rear supply bases.
And also in Russia there have been serious arrivals in several regions. There were explosions at the Novokubishevsk oil refinery in the Samara region. This oil refinery produces fuel for Russia's hypersonic aircraft. Maybe it was produced. Wait, just wait. For the first time during the Great War, drones in the ICU attacked Chuvashia. A drone attacked the Burevestnik plant, which is owned by Rosreserve and is used for oil storage. And while Ukrainian drones are haunting Russia, billionaire Elon Musk stated that the Starlink system is the backbone of the Ukrainian army. And if he turns it off, the front line of the armed forces of Ukraine will simply collapse.
There are currently around 40,000 Starlink systems in service, the needs of the Ukrainian Defense Forces. It should be noted that even the combined capacity of all European telecom operators will not be able to compensate these losses. But at the same time, I want to point out that Elon Musk stated that he will never turn off the network. Starlink for the Ukrainian military, even if he disagrees with Ukraine's policies.
Well, the battered Ukrainian Kharkiv is recovering after the traditionally brutal and as a cowardly missile strike. An enemy ballistic missile hit a residential area. The blast wave damaged high-rise buildings, garages, cars, and a kindergarten. There are injured people. All the details are in the report from the scene by TSN journalist Yulia Boyko.
And the entrance to the house, on the string. The child has come down.
This footage was taken just a few minutes after the missile strike in the middle of a residential area. The missile exploded in the yard just a few meters from this house. The patrols are helping to evacuate people, most of whom woke up from the explosions. It went off only 5 minutes after the warning about the missile threat.
I was lying down, there was an explosion and the window fell on me, that's it. My wife got hit, it was just shrapnel. She was just about to add some tea and head out to work. And it hit, well, instantly an explosion and that's it. It just blew out my window. Debris from the garages, smoke, everything. Maybe something else could have been seen.
At the impact site, there's a huge crater. Debris is scattered all around. The blast wave shattered windows and glass. Furniture was thrown around in the apartments and the plaster came off. A total of 9 apartment buildings and a kindergarten were damaged. The garages were destroyed and the cars were burned. The number of injured was increasing every half hour. At first they reported 4, then 5, and by the afternoon it was already 8.
They have non-life-threatening injuries, bruises to internal organs, limbs and cuts from glass.
The Russians used the Iskander-M missile, say law enforcement. Near the impact site, there's only residential development.
He found out that we're being bombed. What for?
Again, we see that this is not a military target, there are no military personnel here. And there are no reasons to launch a missile strike here. Even in wartime, this is very low, and it's a war crime that we will document.
Rescuers have been clearing the rubble since early morning, checking the damaged houses and garages. The residents have come together, collecting debris and boarding up the broken windows with plywood. Those whose homes are now uninhabitable have been provided with temporary shelter.
And also this week, as is tradition, there were so-called cotton incidents on the territory of Russia. Of course, the drone attack on military facilities in Moscow and the Moscow region stands out on its own. By the way, there were several of them. Russian air defense forces say that at the beginning of the week, they intercepted 69 Ukrainian drones that were moving towards Moscow. As a result of probably of the largest attack on the Russian capital throughout the entire period of the war. By the way, it was even suspended the operation of Zhukovsky and Domodedovo airports in the Moscow region. All the details of this effective and very timely attack are right now in our report.
Moscow and the region are under fire. Russia has faced the largest attack during the Great War. Russian media reports about 337 drones. It was also restless today in relatively safe Russian territories. Russian officials stated that on the night of March 11th, dozens of drones attacked the capital of Russia, Moscow. As of this morning, they allegedly shot down 69 drones. The airports in the city were not operational, there are damages and casualties. The attack has been called the most massive on Russia since the beginning of the full-scale war. The Russian Ministry of Defense stated that they intercepted and destroyed 337 Ukrainian drones. Of these, 91 were over the Moscow region, 126 over the Kursk region. UAVs were also shot down in Belgorod, Ryazan, Kaluga, Lipetsk, Oryol and other regions.
This makes it clear to both the Russian side and accordingly the American side that the Ukrainian Defense Forces and consequently the Ukrainian political leadership still have what are called trump cards in the negotiation process. This specifically refers to striking deep into the territory of the Russian Federation with both aerodynamic and aeroballistic targets.
The head of the State Duma's Defense Committee called for a response to today's attack and to strike Ukraine with the nuts that the Russian leadership has often used to scare people. One of the truly useful things being discussed in Russia is a proposal from insurance companies to include coverage for drone strikes in their policies.